You know, I've never been a soccer fan. I'm sorry, football. Is it football or soccer? You know, here's the thing. Here in the United States of America, it's soccer. And in the rest of the world, it's football. But next year, we're just going to have to call it soccer because it's going to be here in the. In fact, I'd like that to be one of President Donald Trump's FIFA task force's first goals. So no pun intended. I'd like their first goal to be to rename football soccer, at least for the FIFA World Cup, which is coming to the United States next year. That was one of the big stories. Yeah, Donald Trump had a very busy day yesterday. The first thing he did was he hosted Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, which was, I got to tell you, it was a very interesting meeting. I know everyone said that they got along. I know everyone said it was very cordial, but I just have to say, to me, it was a very, very interesting meeting. And I don't think it was it was cordial, but I don't think it was. I think there were more fireworks than most people are going to let on. Then President Donald Trump went to the first meeting of his FIFA task force for 2026 because the FIFA World Cup is going to be coming to the US of A. And then he went to the Oval Office where they swore in Steve Witkoff as the special envoy to the Middle East ahead of some major announcement that President Donald Trump is making about the Middle East. And then on top of all that, he went out and had a press conference where he answered a bunch of really silly questions from the media. Very busy day, as is every day at the White House, as is every day with President Donald Trump. Now, the interesting thing about this FIFA event is that this is the largest event in the entire world when it comes to sports. We like to think the Super Bowl is the biggest event, and it's pretty big, but it's not the biggest event in the world when it comes to professional sports. A lot of people like to think, that, the Olympics is a big deal. And the Olympics, okay, it's a big deal to some people, but for most people, it's just a couple of weeks when you don't get to watch your soap operas. But the biggest sporting event in the entire world has to be the FIFA World Cup. And next year, it's going to be hosted here in the US of A. Also, Mexico and Canada, but we don't really like to talk about them. And let's face it, when we talk about Mexico and Canada, when we talk about North America, we're talking about the United States. Here's President Donald Trump yesterday at the White House discussing the FIFA World Cup and making the big announcement at the beginning of the White House task force on the 2026 FIFA celebration.
Together, this group will help plan the biggest, safest, and most extraordinary soccer tournament in history, and that's what it's going to be, Johnny. In my first term, I negotiated the return of the World Cup to America, and now in my second term, I'll have the honor of hosting the World Cup for the first time of any president in more than 30 years. And remember, we also have a few other events. I must tell you that we have the 2028 Olympic Games. We have the 250-year celebration of America. That's a big one. I don't know. Maybe that's the biggest. I don't know. That could be the biggest. But that's going to be unbelievable. It's going to be essentially, Todd, that's going to be a year-long celebration. We have the G20, and that'll be in December of 26. We have the G7, used to be the G8, by the way, and that's in 2027. Yeah. And that's a lot of action we have going for the next 4 years, 3.5 years. It's going to be amazing for the country, I believe.
Now, Donald Trump mentions all these things for a couple reasons. First of all, he did negotiate the FIFA World Cup returning to the United States of America. Also, the Olympics are coming back, and those are two international events. Those are huge. But the G7 and the G20, and it used to be, who did we kick out of the G8? Was it Russia, I think, right? Yeah, I think that's right. But anyway, so those are also international events that he would have to travel to. But now, guess what? He doesn't have to leave the country. Donald Trump can do everything that he would have had to have traveled internationally, but now he can just kick it in D.C. He can get on Air Force One. He can go wherever he wants to, and he doesn't even have to leave the United States of America for all of these celebrations. Plus, yes, let's not forget that it's the 250th anniversary of our country, the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. America was born in 1776, and 250 years later, President Donald Trump is in charge of its quarter, what do you call it? What's a quarter of 1,000 years? Yeah, century. Quarter century celebration. It's really, really phenomenal, and it's really, really exciting. But this FIFA World Cup, look, here's what Donald Trump does. Donald Trump is like, look, we're going to...
This incredible group that we've assembled.
He goes, look, we're going to do this, and we're going to give the people who are the most effective the job of making sure that this works well. That's what Donald Trump does. He understands that when you hire really good people, when you hire smart people, when you hire people who can delegate and get tasks done, then you can just put them in charge of these things and they're going to do great. So JD Vance, the Vice President of the United States, is in charge of the FIFA World Cup. Now, I know what you're thinking. Isn't this the same guy who broke the national championship football trophy? Yes, it is, and he mentioned that.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thanks to this incredible group that we've assembled. I'm proud to be the vice chair of this for a couple of reasons. First of all, the last time the president had me around a national or international sports trophy was the college football playoff national championship, and I almost broke it. And so I appreciate the president giving me a second chance here. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yep.
Thanks.
And he's got jokes too. And then they talked about, how exciting it is to have this. And again, if you've never been to the World Cup, I mean, it is insanity. It's wild. People love this thing. Last time I remember, and again, I'm not a soccer fan or a football fan, either one of them. It's too much, the field's too big. There's too much running. It makes me big. I just sweat starting to think about it. But it's a big deal internationally. Everybody loves this sport. And to have it here in the United States of America and Mexico and Canada is, like we said, a big deal.
As all of you know, soccer is a sport of incredible grace and finesse and beauty. These are three things that have nothing to do with politics, and so we're thrilled to have the FIFA World Cup in the United States of America. I think that you'll see the very best of the United States of America, both in athletic competition, but also in hospitality, something our boss knows quite a bit about. And so we're excited to have you. We're excited for this event, and we will do everything at the government level to make this thing as successful as we can. And I will say, before I turn it over to the next speaker, that, of course, everybody is welcome to come and see this incredible event. I know we'll have visitors probably from close to 100 countries. We want them to come. We want them to celebrate. We want them to watch the game. But when the time is up, they'll have to go home. Otherwise, they'll have to talk to Secretary No.
That's the first thing I thought of, too, was I was like, man, you know what? All these illegal immigrants that President Donald Trump is deporting, how annoyed are they that they're getting sent home right before the United States hosts the World Cup? Because soccer and football, very popular in Venezuela and El Salvador and Mexico and a lot of these countries where these people came from illegally.
Actually, with the new prime minister, who's a terrific guy. And we had a great...
This was him. Oh, anyway, sorry. So right before the FIFA World Cup Task Force meeting, President Donald Trump met with Mark Carney, who is the Prime Minister of Canada. We played you some of those clips yesterday, but he said, there were reports about how this was kind of a tense at time meeting that, Canada, this guy, Mark Carney, ran by bashing Donald Trump. He ran by attacking Donald Trump. He ran on Donald Trump accusing or threatening to make Canada the 51st state. Everything that Mark Carney did to win this election was to run against and to rail against President Donald Trump in Canada. And not only did he do that, but he was able to win a decisive victory against the conservative group and Pierre Poilievre, which, I mean, it's wild that there's an entire country of people that are so upset by President Donald Trump's words that they would vote for more of the same in Canada. But that's exactly what happened, and Donald Trump congratulated him. But we did hear that there was a point of contention in the meeting about the 51st state. And at one point, Mark Carney, from what I hear, turned to President Donald Trump over lunch or in a private meeting or whatever and said, hey, look, I need you to please stop referring to us as the 51st state. Now, I am not a political expert by any means, but I feel that if you have to ask the leader of another country to please stop referring to your country as their 51st state, I feel like you've already lost. I feel like as soon as the words come out of your mouth, you know that you are not in a position of power. You know you have no bargaining chips left. If you have to look at the president of the United States and say, please stop referring to us as the 51st state, obviously, there's nothing you can do. There's clearly nothing that we want from you or need from you, and President Donald Trump was very clear on that. But he did say, after it was all said and done, and after he was back on the plane to the Great White North, he did say, we had a lovely meeting.
We had a great meeting today, actually, with the new prime minister, who's a terrific guy. And we had a very long session with JD and Marco and everybody. and it went very well. No, we had a very great meeting, and no tension. We want to do what's right for our respective peoples, and that's what's going to happen.
We want to do what's right for respective peoples. That's what's going to happen. We're going to do right by Canada. We're going to do right by the United States of America. And, look, Donald Trump, he doesn't pull any punches. He's very nice. He's very cordial. He said they had a lovely meeting. He said we're going to have a great friendship and a great relationship. And I believe all of that. And I think Mark Carney does too. But Donald Trump is very clear about the goals of the United States of America. And the goals of the United States of America do not include carrying Canada on their shoulders or on our shoulders for much longer, if not at all. And we don't really want to be dependent on Canada or anyone else. And that's something that President Donald Trump was very much specific about. He said, we're not going to buy your cars anymore. Our goal is to not do business with you at all.
We are the largest client of the United States in the totality of all the goods. So we are the largest client of the United States. We have a tremendous auto sector between the two of us, and the changes that made have been helpful. 50% of a car that comes from Canada is American. That's not like anywhere else in the world. And to your question about is there one thing? No, this is a bigger discussion. There are much bigger forces involved, and this will take some time and some discussions, and that's why we're here, to have those discussions, and that is represented by who's sitting around the table.
See, the conflict is, and this is very friendly. We're not. This is not going to be like we had another little blow up with somebody else. That was a much different. This is a very friendly conversation. But we want to make our own cars. We don't really want cars from Canada, and we put tariffs on cars from Canada. And at a certain point, it won't make economic sense for Canada to build those cars. And we don't want steel from Canada because we're making our own steel, and we're having massive steel plants being built right now as we speak. We really don't want Canadian steel, and we don't want Canadian aluminum and various other things because we want to be able to do it ourselves. And because of past thinking of people, we have a tremendous deficit with Canada. In other words, they have a surplus with us, and there's no reason for us to be subsidizing Canada. Canada's a place that will have to be able to take care of itself economically.
Donald Trump has this. It's really masterful when you look at it. And I have a clip from Stephen Miller that I'm going to play here in just a minute saying exactly that. But basically, here's what's going on. Here's what happens. Donald Trump has these press conferences with these world leaders. They come into the very first thing they do. Donald Trump meets them and greets them. He brings them in, and this is all part of his plan. He doesn't go into the meeting first. He doesn't say, let's have lunch and talk about things. They go into the press conference right away. And that gives Donald Trump the opportunity to bring in the media, have the media ask questions, and Donald Trump can lay out his plans, his idea of what the conversation is going to be. He can set it up before they go in the back and they have a meeting. He can set it up before lunch. The media is allowing Donald Trump to, in a very positive and friendly way, say, hey, just so you know, our goal is to bankrupt your auto industry. Our goal is to bankrupt your steel industry. Our goal is to not have to buy anything from you. We don't do a lot of business with you now. We're okay doing zero business with you. We want you to buy our stuff, sure. But the goal of the United States of America is to be energy independent. We're well on our way. To be manufacturing independent. We're well on our way. To be independent of your steel industry and your lumber and everything else. Maple syrup, beer, Moosehead. We don't need any of it. We got all that stuff here. And that's Donald Trump's goal. And he can say this to the media. He can say it talking to the camera, knowing full well that Mark Carney is sitting there listening to it. And Mark Carney is now going into the meeting, having already heard everything on Donald Trump's mind. And now, though, that's the starting point. Mark Carney may have shown up, and any world leader may have shown up with a list of things that they want to talk about. They may have walked in and said, President Donald Trump, I want to talk about these 9 things. President Donald Trump, here's what we need to discuss right away. But Donald Trump basically says, look, our goal is not to buy more of your cars. It's to buy fewer of your cars. Our goal is not to buy more of your lumber and steel and energy. It's to buy less of all that. We don't want any of it. And now Mark Carney's rethinking his entire agenda. Donald Trump says to the media asks, is there anything Canada can do or say for you to lift the tariffs? And Donald Trump goes, nope. Well, all of a sudden, whatever Mark Carney's starting gambit was, whatever opening move he was going to make, he's now rethinking because he thought maybe there was a discussion about lifting tariffs today. And Donald Trump has made it clear through this press conference, not through any kind of direct conflict or conversation. He's not even looking at Mark Carney. He's looking at the media and he's going, nope.
Tariff in Canada. Is there anything he could say to you in the course of your meetings with him today that would get you to lift tariffs on Canada?
No,
Why not?
just the way it is.
That's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. We're not, why would we lift tariffs on Canada? Nope. That's just the way it is. And now Carney's got to figure out what he's going to do. And Stephen Miller explained this best. He goes, look, I was watching this thing and people think Donald Trump is kind of like a bull in a china shop, or he meanders, or he says these weird things, or he tells these bizarre stories. But Donald Trump knows exactly what he's doing. He's been doing it for years. He's been very successful at it. And Stephen Miller is reminding everybody that Donald Trump is the leader of the free world, and he leads any and all negotiations in a way that is masterful.
I had the pleasure of getting to be at the meeting today between the President of the United States and the Prime Minister of Canada. What I witnessed was like watching a grandmaster in chess perform. President Trump has opened up a completely new relationship with Canada because of his strength and because of his diplomacy. The Prime Minister of Canada talked about finally contributing their fair share to our nation's defense, or to NATO's defense. Finally contributing and meeting that minimum 2% benchmark and climbing up from there, so they're not a free rider with the United States anymore. He talked about achieving fair trade with the United States and the Prime Minister of Canada acknowledged the need to strike a fair trade deal with the United States, as President Trump has long asked for. He emphasized, the Prime Minister of Canada, his deployment of troops and guards to the Canadian border at President Trump's request to keep fentanyl out of the United States of America. It's just one concrete win after another because of President Trump's leadership on this issue. And President Trump kept emphasizing two words. We want friendship with Canada, but we also insist upon and demand fairness from Canada. And President Trump will continue to hold fast to that requirement.
That is fairness and friendship. And that's what Donald Trump wants. We'll be friends, but we need fairness too. We'll be friends, but we're going to be fair about it. Now, the interesting thing is that Donald Trump has held steady and steadfast on one thing. He doesn't want anyone to think that Canada is bad. And that's, it's an interesting way that he has about it. It's an interesting way to negotiate. President Donald Trump comes in and he goes, look, you're being truly unfair. These trade deals are unfair. We've been taken advantage of. You've been taking advantage of us for a long time. He says it about China. He says it about Canada. He says it about Mexico. He says it about everybody because it's true. But he never blames the people for taking advantage of us because he knows that if he were in the same position, he would do the same thing. He knows that they were given an amazing deal. The United States had a crappy deal. Joe Biden gave these countries an amazing deal. Donald Trump says they would have been stupid to not take it. Of course they're going to take this deal. It's better for them. And the blame does not lay on Canada. The blame does not lay on China. The blame lays firmly on the shoulders of President Joe Biden.
Well, Laura, no one has, and that's how we've gotten here. When President Trump says he doesn't blame the other countries for taking advantage of us, he blames the previous presidents at the Resolute desk. I agree with him, because when these countries come with these good deals, like, this is a great deal. How do we get here? How do we get here? And the other thing too is we've created this barbell economy. So of course the status quo has done well. So the status quo is we have advanced finance, we have a tech sector that's the envy of the world. On the other side, we have a natural resources economy led by energy, which, by the way, the last administration tried to kill. And President Trump is filling in the arc in between with manufacturing jobs. We're down to 8% manufacturing jobs in the U.S., and research has shown the best way to get the real wage increases is in manufacturing jobs, not in the service sector.
All right, so we got manufacturing jobs coming back. We got all these other jobs coming back, and that's all thanks to Donald Trump and his tariffs. Because he says, look, you get service jobs are great, and we can bring back all of the call centers we want from India. But the fact of the matter is we're not going to bring up wages in the private sector. We're not going to bring up wages on jobs unless we have manufacturing. And in order to get manufacturing, we've got to tell these countries, you're going to be tariffed unless, of course, you build your crap here in the United States of America. You're going to be tariffed on your automobiles unless, of course, you build them here in the United States. You're going to be tariffed on your computer chips unless you build them here in the United States. You're going to be tariffed on any and everything unless, of course, you build it here in the United States of America. And look what's happening. Even Apple Computer is bringing back its manufacturing. Even Apple saying, we don't want to get tariffed on our iPhones and our iWatches and everything else. We want tariff-free electronics. So what do? They start bringing back manufacturing here to the United States. And we're seeing really, truly the new golden age. When you couple that with like the FIFA World Cup, when you couple that with the 250th anniversary, Donald Trump is going to, in the next year, have more jobs here in the United States of America, have more manufacturing here in the United States of America, and have bigger and better events here in the United States of America, that every sector is going to explode. Every sector. And if you have no tax on tips, if you have no tax on Social Security, if you have no tax on overtime, then both the manufacturing and the service industries are going to really explode. Everybody's going to be rolling in it, and this country is going to be richer than it ever has been. And it's really, truly incredible. It's really a truly incredible thing to see, and we're really excited about it. Speaking of Scott Bessent, we talked about how he was at the he's on Capitol Hill, and Scott Bessent had a very interesting back and forth with Maxine Waters about the electric slide.
Very much, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Bessent, this is the first time we've met. Is that correct?
No, ma'am. We actually met one New Year's Eve in the Bahamas. And I was...
He didn't make an impression.
Why don't I remember that?
Well, you were much better at the electric slide than I was. And I was with the Prime Minister of the Bahamas yesterday, Prime Minister Davis, who sends his regards.
Well, were you with my husband when he was the ambassador to the Bahamas appointed by Clinton? Well, you're not going to like this.
Yeah. And then she went in to say some ridiculous things about the Treasury or Doge or whatever. I don't know. They all still hate Doge because they don't like the Doge team coming in and getting rid of their waste, their fraud, and their abuse. There was another moment. Do you remember Al Green? Al Green with the cane, who waved his cane in the air when President Donald Trump was giving his speech to a joint session. Al Green, who waved his cane in the air and tried to make a ruckus when Donald Trump was speaking. Well, he tried to take down Scott Bessent, but I'm going to be honest with you, the intelligence counts for something, and Scott Bessent is much more intelligent than Al Green could ever hope to be. So it went about as well. It went about as well as you could think.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank the ranking member, and I thank the witness for appearing. Mr. Treasurer.
Okay, hold on one second. First of all, it's Mr. Secretary, not Mr. Treasurer. He's the Secretary of the Treasury, but he's not the Treasurer. This is not like a Kiwanis Club meeting. He's the Secretary of the Treasury of the United States of America. It's one of the highest ranking cabinet positions and one of the most important. And Al Green doesn't even know who he is. Al Green's like, thank you, Mr. Treasurer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank the ranking member, and I thank the witness for appearing. Mr. Treasurer, when you testified before the Senate, you indicated that the CDFI fund is a very important program. It's very important to us. Is this correct?
I did, sir.
And is it true that you would not agree that it is a woke program, it has cultural Marxism associated with it, and that it is abused? You wouldn't agree with that, would you?
Sorry, I think the CDFI fund is performing its statutory functions as required.
So you would not agree then that it's woke? Is it statutory function to be woke?
I've never seen that in the statute, sir.
Okay. What about Marxism? Is that associated with it in the statute?
Again, sir, I've never seen that.
Okay, now given that the president desires to cut into this program, you're the Secretary of the Treasury, what are you going to do about it to protect it?
Sir, the skinny budget does propose a new $100 million award program that will provide access to affordable financing.
Does that take care of the many billions that we put in, $12 billion to support the CDFIs? That's a lot. It's quite a distance from the $12 billion, sir. What are you going to do about it?
Look, I understand.
Do you advise the president?
Sorry?
Do you advise the president?
I advise the president on a wide range of matters.
Is this considered a part of a wide range of matters? Would you advise the president that he shouldn't cut these funds?
I look forward to working with you and the committee to ensure these programs operate efficiently for taxpayers.
What about efficiently for taxpayers and efficiently as a result of them being in place to do so? If you don't have the money, they can't be efficient. They can't serve taxpayers if you don't have the money. 61% of these programs are in Republican districts.
By the way, that's a typical Democrat belief. Listen to what he said there. He said, if you don't have the money, you can't be efficient. When really, the opposite is true. Efficiency doesn't come from money. In fact, the less money you have, the more efficient you have to be. And if you're more efficient, you require less money. Democrats really clearly don't know anything about anything. They don't know how efficiency works. They think efficiency means spend more money. They think that efficiency means let's give billions of dollars where we only need millions of dollars. Let's hire 100 people where we only need 10. That's their idea of efficiency. He goes, how can it be efficient if we don't spend the money? And what he means is we need more money to give out. Not we need an efficient system. An efficient system would be let's get the money out more efficiently. Let's not waste any of it. And then we can save the taxpayers' dollars in the end. That's not how the Democrats think. Just the fact that he said we need money to be more efficient shows that he doesn't know what efficiency means at all, which isn't surprising because he is a Democrat.
Is there a question?
Yes, it is a question in the sense that I'm asking you to suggest to the president that this is important and that you not cut it.
So the skinny, as I said,
100 million is quite a distance from 12 billion.
Well, that's not the annual appropriate. 12 billion is not the annual appropriation.
No, but 12 billion is what we, a bipartisan group of folk, put into the CDFIs as well as into the minority depository institutions. We don't want to see that cut. Let's go to another area. Do you agree that when a tariff is imposed upon a product that's coming into this country, that the tariff is collected at the border?
Yes, sir.
And do you agree that that money that's collected goes into the Treasury's coffer?
Yes, sir.
And do you agree also that if the person that is importing this product is of the opinion that it is something that his clientele, his customers desire, that he will pay that tariff?
Yes, sir.
And do you agree that when he pays that tariff, he's likely to pass it on to his customers, his consumers?
Sir, the laws of economics would say that they're very elastic.
I understand, but do you agree that he is likely to do that? Do you agree that he does it sometime? Do you agree that he does it sometime? Do you agree that he ever do it? Does he ever do it?
Sure.
So your position is, as the great treasurer you are,
it's Secretary of the Treasury. By the way, now he's just trying to goad him.
This is not passed on to the taxpayers.
It could
the
be.
Consumers. It could be. Well, is it ever? It's hard to say yes, isn't it? It really is.
It's not hard
don't
to say.
Listen,
Sir,
sir. You don't have to fear. Don't listen. Don't fear the president, sir. Is it ever passed on? Have you ever heard of this tax money being collected and passed on to the consumer to pay? Have you ever heard of that?
Well, the most recent studies from...
Okay, let's go on to this point. I have a better point to make. Excuse me, I'm reclaiming my time. I have a better point. Listen just a second. I only have a little bit of time. And when it goes into the coffers, that money is then going to be a part of the tax dollars that can be accorded to persons in terms of a tax cut. Is this true?
It's part of the overall...
Yes, it is true, which means that the consumer, the person who pays that tax, this tariff tax, when he makes that purchase, is going to put his money in your coffer, our coffer, and then the president later on can say, you got a tax cut, but it's really the money that the consumer has put into your coffer. That is true. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Ohio.
It's very funny. So what the Democrats are arguing now with tariffs is they're arguing that when somebody when the president levies a tariff, and let's say, you're bringing in pens from Argentina, because Argentina is known for their amazing pens. So you bring in pens from Argentina, all of a sudden there's a tariff on the pens from Argentina, so they're going to cost more at the border. There's going to be a 25-cent tariff on the pen, instead of the Argentinians saying, well, we're going to eat that 25 cents. They're going to raise the cost of the pen 25 cents. So now Americans are paying that 25 cents. Then that money goes to the Treasury, because that's where tariffs end up. And when Donald Trump cuts taxes, he's going to say, I gave you a tax cut. But if he cuts your tax by 20 cents and the pen costs 25 cents, you're not actually getting a tax cut. You're losing a nickel. And Donald Trump is claiming, I cut your taxes. That's not at all how it works. And what typically happens, as Scott Bessent said, is when tariffs are at the border, not all of these countries will, not all of these countries will, or not all of these corporations will pass the cost on to the consumer. In fact, we saw more of that happen with Bidenomics. When inflation goes up, because that is a domestic problem, sure, all of a sudden prices go up, because here locally in the United States of America, when something is created or when something is made, the inflationary costs of gas and transportation and storage and packaging and everything else and labor, all of that causes the price to go up, because American consumers have to absorb the cost. But when you have international companies coming in, typically what happens is American consumers will find an alternative, or the international companies will pay the tariff themselves, or they will begin to bring their production and manufacturing into the United States of America. That's what Scott Bessent was trying to say, but the old man with the cane wouldn't let him. Representative Velasquez also came at Scott Bessent, and he basically said to her, look, what you are doing right now is undermining the president's ability to make trade agreements that are beneficial to the United States of America. Stop it.
Specifically, which countries are you close to striking deals with?
I'm sorry, Congresswoman, but that would not benefit the United States.
No. I'm asking you a question based on the statement that you made on CNBC.
And I am telling you that it would be detrimental to the interest of the United States for me to answer that question.
Why will that be detrimental?
Because as the negotiations may still be in process as we speak, as we are not at the end of the week yet, I am sure that you through your question, would not want to compromise the U.S. negotiating.
Reclaiming my time.
Would you?
Secretary Bessent, the president goes into a press conference and claims that there are negotiations going on. And then the next day, there's no negotiations going on. So why would you not answer my question? And that will be considered detrimental to the American people, to the American economy. I do not understand. Despite your claim...
I'm happy to say there are negotiations going on. I'm not going to reveal the details.
No filibuster. No filibuster here.
So how long do you think those negotiations will take before they are concluded?
There are numerous countries, as I have said, if you saw my CNBC interview, which you referenced, that there are 18 important trading partners, and we are moving forward at all deliberate speed with those.
I really feel like English should be a requirement for representatives in the House. We just made it so that truck drivers have to be proficient in English. They have to be able to read and write English. And I'm not saying it has to be your first or primary language, but I feel like there should be some kind of understanding. This woman doesn't understand what Scott Bessent's saying. She doesn't understand that if you start talking openly about the details of various negotiations with various countries, you actually are putting those negotiations at risk. And she's demanding answers that he's not going to give, and she doesn't understand. And I think I know why she doesn't understand. And Donald Trump said, look, I could announce any one of these trade deals at any time. I could announce that we've come up with one of hundreds of trade deals, but I'm not going to do that because, well, I'm the guy. The buck stops with me.
Well, I can announce all of them now. I could announce 50 to 100 deals right now because, I'm the shopkeeper and I keep the store. And, I know what countries are looking for and I know what we're looking for. And I can just set those terms and they can go shopping or they don't have to go shopping because everybody wants to shop here. This is like a beautiful store. This is like one of Bernard Arnault, or maybe I should say Alex even more importantly, young, the future. But Bernard's an honor to have you. We'll have a meeting after this. But he has the greatest stores in the world and they want to shop. Our country is the greatest store in the world of that kind. And everybody wants a piece of it. And they took advantage of us for years because we allowed our presidents allowed it to happen. I don't blame China and I don't blame Vietnam. And I could name every single country all the way up and down the line. South Korea, every single country took advantage of us without exception. Japan, these are friends of mine, but they took advantage of this country. They ripped off our country, selling us millions and millions of cars a year. And we sold them none. We weren't allowed to sell them a car. They took advantage of us. I don't blame them. I blame the people that sat behind that desk that allowed it to happen. But I don't allow it to happen. I didn't in the first term, but this is a much stronger position because we're the greatest economy in history in our first term. Stock market was up 88%, and we had numbers much better than that. But this is going to be, I think, a much better term. And I think the tariffs are starting to come in. We were losing $5 billion plus a day on trade. Now we're not losing that kind of money, and we'll soon be making a lot of money a day and a year and a month.
Yeah, and a week and a millennium, and it's true. And Donald Trump the one thing he understands is the economy. I mean, he understands a lot of things, but the one thing he understands is the economy, and he understands how to negotiate, and he understands how to get these things done. And nobody else in Congress does, especially the Democrats. They don't understand how tariffs work. They don't understand how negotiations work. They don't understand the necessity for negotiating on our terms. They don't understand the nuances of working and dealing with other countries and other governments. They barely understand English, some of them. Maybe that's what I should do. Maybe one of my first acts when I become a congressman is to introduce a bill requiring incoming congresspeople or congresspeople to take an English proficiency exam. That would be, there was that truck driver who said the truck driver said that he got stopped and he had to, where was it? Truck driver, English proficient. That's what happened with the whole, Donald Trump just signed an executive order, right? He just signed this executive order and he said, now we need, here it is. Listen to this. This is great. Let's see if I can play it here.
Signed an executive order on Monday that requires commercial truck drivers in the United States to be proficient in English. This comes just weeks after a video of a truck driver went viral after he was given a literacy test.
Couldn't believe it.
Wait, what happened there? Was it
going through Arkansas? I thought it was a joke. Got stopped at the way station in Arkansas and was handed a piece of paper and it says, "Can you read and write English?" I said, "Yes, sir, I sure can." He goes, "Can you read this?" So I read it to myself, and I was like, okay, I started handing it back. He goes, no, read it out loud for me. So I read it out loud for him, and, it was short and sweet, no problem. He goes, now, can you write this for me on this paper? And I did, and there was a whole bunch of people that had already written on it. And I was actually witnessing people in handcuffs that had been pulled in, and I was like, well, what's going on? And he goes, we've come across now that if you cannot read or write in English, that it's a $5,000 fine, and if you have a company in Arkansas that employs people that can't read or write in English, it's a $10,000 fine paid on the spot. If you cannot pay it, you're automatically arrested and lose your license.
I mean, that's one way to get people to learn the language. And that's one way to get people, if you want to inspire people to learn how to read and write English, or hire people who know how to read and write English, because it's important. It's important when you're talking about communication on the highway. I mean, think about that. When you're a long, a highway, what do you call it? Long distance trucker, you need to be able to communicate. You need to be able to communicate with the police, with other truckers, all kinds of, it's very important. It's like air traffic control. And I think if you're a congressperson too, if you're writing laws and voting on laws, and if you're especially interrogating people in the United States House of Representatives, you should have to know how to speak English. That's going to be one of my first, I guess, bill that I introduce is going to be the Mandatory English Proficiency Act, or MEPA. we got to come up with that. Hold on. The English Proficiency Act, the Congressional English Proficiency Act. That's CEPA. There you go. We'll figure something out. We'll come up with, there's somebody I know in Congress, and their job is to just come up with really cool, acronyms. And I need to find that person, because I'm going to need some help. I'm going to need some help with my acronyms for sure. But look, there's a lot going on there in every single day in Congress, and there's a lot going on with the media and Donald Trump and the White House, and the United States of America is there was nowhere to go but up, and now we're getting there so quickly, and the media and the Democrats continue to try to tear us down. The media and the Democrats, they continue to try to take these successes that Donald Trump is experiencing, that his team is experiencing, and they are trying to make them into failures. And the worst part is their messengers. The messengers that they have in the Democrat Party. Maxine Waters, for example. Here's Maxine Waters. Listen to her again. I believe this is also Scott Besson. Listen to her attacking him, and tell me that you can't even focus on the words that she's saying because of the way she's delivering the message.
Do you know the level, type, or nature of the clearances and security training required for individuals to access the information held in the computers of Treasury, IRS, or CFPB?
Yes, I do, and I think we would have a disagreement over the definition of the word unfettered.
Mr. Secretary, did all the individuals working with Doge who were given access to Treasuries and CFPB's computer databases receive all of the required clearances and security training before they were granted access?
Again, they were granted read-only access at Treasury. There were two.
So let me just say,
Doge employees.
Please, you can't filibuster here. This is not the filibuster playground. And so what you did was you let these strangers into our Treasury with access to all of the data, all of the personnel information, and you just opened the door. Why'd you do that?
No, ma'am. They were Treasury employees.
Oh, are you saying today in front of this committee that all of them were Treasury employees, that the 25-year-old who's being identified, who worked for Elon Musk, was allowed into the Treasury? Was that person there?
He was a Treasury employee, as was Tom Krause, the senior person on the Doge team. There were only two people.
There were Doge employees also.
Sorry?
Do you know, were you aware that there were Doge employees coming into our Treasury getting all of our personal information?
Well, ma'am, there is no such thing as a Doge employee. There were Treasury employees.
I tend to disagree with you based on the information I have.
I tend to disagree. Doge does not employ anybody. Doge is an office, and what they do is they go in and they have oversight. There's no one gets paid by Doge. As he pointed out, these were all Treasury individuals. These were employees of the U.S. Treasury. And as employees of the U.S. Treasury, they had been granted access to read-only files. And Maxine Waters has no clue what she's talking about. She can't deliver her thoughts in a succinct way. She doesn't have, and she's talking about she asks him a question, he answers it. She talks about the filibuster playground, whatever that is. And these are the messengers they have. Al Green, the old man with the cane who was censured by the House of Representatives, Representative what's her name? I even forget her name. Who? Velasquez, who can't even speak English, and Maxine Waters, who's like 89, can barely stand and doesn't know that Doge doesn't actually employ anybody. And Scott Bessent is doing his best, doing his darndest to not laugh in her face and make her, and disrespect her, even though I'm sure there were like 5,000 other places he wanted to be. The messengers are bad. That's the problem. I mean, the message is horrible, but the messengers are bad. The Democrat Party doesn't have anyone that can come forward and deliver a succinct idea in a way that anyone's going to believe it. Not anyone with any common sense. They don't. It's the weirdest thing ever. They've now become the parody party. They are a party that is a parody of themselves. If you take the worst of every kind of Democrat stereotype that you can think of, if you take the worst of every kind of left-wing lunatic liberal socialist stereotype that you can conceive of, and you put them together in a party, that's what you've got. That's what you have in Congress. That's what you have in the Senate. That's what you have in all of these other agencies. And it is a travesty for the United States of America, but it's also detrimental to the Democrat Party. Again, I'm not complaining because they're on a self-destructive path. Now, the problem I do have, of course, is when Republicans want to try and use, I don't even know what it is, but I don't even know what Tom Tillis's problem is. But Tom Tillis in North Carolina has just painted a big target on his back. Tom Tillis says he's opposing the appointment of Ed Martin to the D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office. This is President Donald Trump's choice. President Donald Trump chose this guy to be the next D.C. U.S. Attorney, Ed Martin. And because of some of the things he said, or because of his stance on January 6th, they're not even a stance, but answers he gave to questions, which seemed logical. Now Tom Tillis from North Carolina is saying, I'm not going to support him, and basically ending President Donald Trump's choice. The choice now goes to Judge Boasberg, who we know hates President Donald Trump and is going to appoint somebody that is going to be basically just like him. And Tom Tillis blocking it is inconceivable that a Republican would do this, and nobody can really understand why. Plus, like I said, it's pretty much the end of his entire political career.
He is, I don't believe he's being advanced to the markup. I met with Mr. Martin. He seems like a good man. Most of my concerns related to January 6th, and he built a compelling case on some of the 15-12 prosecutions that were probably heat of the moment bad decisions, but where we probably have a difference is I think anybody that breached the perimeter should have been in prison for some period of time. Whether it's 30 days or 3 years is debatable, but I have no tolerance for anybody who entered the building on January the 6th, and that's probably where most of the friction was.
I see. So he disagreed with you on that?
Well, no, I have to say that Mr. Martin did a good job of explaining how there were people that probably got caught up in it. But they made the stupid decision to come through a building that had been breached and that the police officers and others were saying stay away. So the difference wasn't that they should be charged, in my estimation, it's by how much. That's an argument I'm willing to have, but we have to be very, very clear that what happened on January the 6th was wrong. It wasn't, it was not prompted or created by other people to put those people in trouble. They made a stupid decision, and they disgraced the United States by absolutely destroying the Capitol, and I can't have any patience for
it sounds like your concerns were not of.
But let me be very clear, though. Mr. Martin did a good job of explaining the one area that I think he's probably right, that there were some people that were over-prosecuted. But there were some, 200 or 300 of them, that should have never gotten a pardon, and he agreed with that. But the disagreement...
I'm so curious. So Tom Tillis says, look, I agreed with him that there were some people who are over-prosecuted, and we agreed that there were some people that should never have been pardoned. But I'm not going to allow him to become the U.S. attorney for the District of D.C., even though President Donald Trump this is President Donald Trump's pick?
There had more to do. If Mr. Martin were being put forth as a U.S. attorney for any district except the district where January 6th happened, the protest happened, I'd probably support him.
That doesn't make any sense. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I support this guy to be a U.S. district attorney in any district other than the District of Columbia. Why? Well, because that's where January 6th happened. What does one thing have to do with the other? Why, if January 6th happened on federal property, January 6th happened in the nation's capital, January 6th happened, at the Capitol building, shouldn't matter where. Because it's the District of Columbia, you can allow him to be a district court judge, but then you can allow him to be one everywhere else. It's the dumbest thing any senator has ever said. And unfortunately for Tom Tillis, he said it on the record, he said it on camera, and now he's probably going to get primaried, hopefully, by the good people in North Carolina for being a total idiot.
But not in this district.
When you say he's not being advanced to the markup, was he operating under that understanding that he's not being advanced through to a markup?
I think Mr. Martin, I'm sure they're looking through it. I mean, be clear, some of the deadline has to do with the length of time he can operate as acting, and the administration can work through that if they want to have more time and potentially work them through. But at this point, I've indicated to the White House I wouldn't support his nomination.
And it's just it's the weirdest thing. And it's really weird when you don't want to support somebody because you have a personal bias against them. It's very difficult to explain or to make up some reason other than that. He should just say, I don't like the guy. I don't like Donald Trump. I'm not really MAGA. I think January 6th was all J6ers should be in prison. He should have said something like along the lines, but he couldn't say that. He can't come forward and say that because he knows that would be a total, loss for him personally. But he's trying to make up some bogus reason as to why he's not going to support Donald Trump's pick for U.S. attorney in the District of Columbia. And he can't do it. He should just say, I don't like President Donald Trump. I don't like January 6th protesters. I don't like MAGA. And I'm having a tough time. I'm having a tough time trying to figure it out. One other thing too, because again, there's dumb people and then there's dumb people. Okay. There's a clip from the Joe Rogan podcast that I don't know if I play it, it might listen. If I play it and you don't hear it later, it's because it got clipped out. But listen to this clip. This is about Pierre Poilievre. Okay. Pierre Poilievre was the conservative candidate to run against Mark Carney in Canada. All right. Pierre Poilievre, apparently, he was for a long time, people called him Canada's Donald Trump, but then Donald Trump said Canada should be the 51st state, and he started railing against Donald Trump as well. And then the conservatives all fell apart. Now Pierre Poilievre, not only is he not the prime minister of Canada, but he's nothing. He lost his seat. He lost his job. So he was I'll let Joe Rogan tell you the story. Hopefully there's no cussing in this.
It reminds me of what happened in Canada with the truckers.
Yes.
I mean, they froze their bank accounts.
Yeah.
Or people who donated to them.
Yeah. People who donated to them got their bank accounts frozen.
How insane.
Insane. And then that same party just won again. Good job, Canada.
Oh, my God. If they didn't have good bear hunting, I would never go there.
I do have to say, I offered to have that Pierre guy come on the podcast.
Really?
He didn't do it. Wouldn't do it. Thought it was too problematic. Or whatever. Jordan told me, I forget what he said, but they were telling him not to do it. Like his advisors were telling him not to do it. Hey, dumbass.
If they can't talk to you.
I mean, look, I'm just going to tell you this, okay? I'm going to tell you this right now. Joe Rogan is still the #1 podcaster in the world. I don't care if you're running for president. I don't care if you're running for Prime Minister of Canada. I don't care if you're running for Sultan of Brunei. I don't care what you're running for. If Joe Rogan calls you and says, would you like to come on my podcast? You say yes. You say yes. Always. Period. End of story. Kamala Harris said no. Look what happened to her. I mean, she would have lost anyway, but she probably wouldn't have lost by as much. Joe Rogan is the kind of person that can move the needle one way or the other for anybody. There are people that would give their left arm to be on Joe Rogan's podcast. Joe Rogan calls Pierre Poilievre and his advisors say no. Those advisors should have been fired. If Pierre Poilievre had appeared on the Joe Rogan podcast, he may actually be the Prime Minister of Canada. He definitely would probably still have his seat. I don't understand. There was a line in, I didn't even remember Ghostbusters. Do you remember in Ghostbusters at the end when they're all fighting Zool and Ray, what's his name? The guy, Dan Aykroyd, his character walks forward and Zool goes, are you a god? And he goes, no. And then he gets blasted with some kind of whatever. And they're sitting there and then what's his name looks at him and says, look, if anybody ever asks you if you're a god, you say yes. The same is true. It was Bill Murray turns to Dan Aykroyd and says, if anyone ever asks you if you're a god, you say yes. If anyone ever asks you, do you want to come on the Joe Rogan podcast? You say yes. Or you fail and fall into the pit of obscurity, which is exactly where Pierre Poilievre and Kamala Harris are. They are nobodies. They have nothing going for them. And it's a once in a lifetime invitation. If you turn it, here's the other thing too. If you turn down if you go on Joe Rogan once, you'll probably be invited back, especially if you're a good guest. If you go on Joe Rogan multiple times, that's great for you. If you turn him down once, you never get invited back. It's done. You got the invitation. You didn't do it. Now there's no reason to talk to you because you're nobody of interest. I don't understand that. People are still very hesitant to embrace the new media. They're still very hesitant to realize that Joe Rogan can do more for your political career or any career than ABC News, CBS News, CNBC, or whatever. What do they have in Canada? They have the CBC. Pierre Poilievre's probably like, we need an interview on the CBC, eh? His advisors are like, we're going to get you on the CBC, eh? Guess what? The CBC is liberal, just like PBS and the BBC. The CBC is not going to help you. Joe Rogan is going to. His podcast is international. I guarantee there's a lot more voters in Canada who listen to the Joe Rogan podcast than watch CBC or whoever else you're talking to. That just irks me. I don't even know Joe Rogan. I went to his concert when he was here. It just irks me that people just are so blinded by hatred for MAGA, for especially conservatives. Pierre Poilievre's a conservative. Tom Tillis is a conservative. They could be helping the cause or they could be hurting the cause. They could be helping themselves or hurting themselves. And now, I guess the good thing is we all know what Tom Tillis is. We've known for a while, but hopefully now he's going to get a real challenge. In fact, I saw John Rich. John Rich came out and said he would perform a live, where is it? He said, if anyone wants to get rid of Tom Tillis, hang on. Let me go to John Rich. He said he would come out and he would perform a live rally for anybody who wants to primary Tom Tillis. I would primary Tom Tillis just to have John Rich come out. I'm trying to primary somebody here. Here we go. If any real patriot will primary Tillis in North Carolina, I'd be happy to roll in there and play a rally for him. He's got to go. Gunther Eagleman, I will fly out for rally. I'll do that too. Me too. I don't know what I'm just throwing my hat in the ring there. I'll go to North Carolina. I'll rally against Tom Tillis. I'll do it. You just watch. I grew up in North Carolina. I lived there for the majority of my life. I know exactly I was there when Senator Helms was senator. I know exactly what North Carolina needs. I know exactly what the country needs. And it's not Tom Tillis. Listen, thank you. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. I can't believe it's already been it's over an hour. This today flew by really quickly. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. If you are not yet a subscriber of this channel, if you don't yet, subscribe to the show or set the notifications on our YouTube channel, if you're not getting our podcast delivered daily, you should probably do that because every single day I sit right here in my chair in Mar-a-Lago. And I broadcast from Patriot HQ and I broadcast to the world. And I do it not for me. I know this stuff. I want you to know it too. I want you to be cognizant of your enemies. I want you to know who's attacking you, who's coming after you. I want you to know who's the dumb things that they're saying, not just on the left, but on the right. You need to know about the Al Greens. You need to know about the Representative Velasquez's. You need to know about the Maxine Waters, but you also need to know about the Tom Tillis's. You need to know about everybody, every threat to the United States of America, and you need to be ready to fight them back. You need to be ready to go in there, hit harder, hit smarter, hit stronger, hit more often. We need to be able to continue to fight and to win because, look, eventually the left is going to get their act together. Maybe. Eventually, they're going to have to find somebody. They're going to come across somebody who maybe has a fighting chance. They're going to get close to winning the House of Representatives, especially if we have these weird Republicans that still, hate America and stuff. It's going to be tough, but eventually something's going to happen. And when it does, we're going to need to be ready to stand up and continue to battle and continue to fight so that we can continue to save the Republic.